the International Spain in 2009. After that, Katie worked for Syngenta, which is a large agrochemical company, for 4 years in both Switzerland and Florida. And now, as a community, we're thrilled that Katie is back here, home in Ravenna, where she now lives with her husband Rick and her daughter Ellie. So welcome, Katie.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be asked to speak to you guys about our company. I think we can start the slides now. I tried to put in a lot of pictures for those of you who haven't been out our way, but I thought I would start with a really brief history of the company and then get into some of our operations, and finally a look ahead at some of our future challenges as well as opportunities. So it may surprise no one that our issues back then are the same as the issues today, basically. So a guest worker program from Mexico was a really fundamental part of our industry for the beginning of our industry, or our company's time in it, until 1964, when the government ended the guest worker program. That caused most growers in Michigan or in the country to stop planting pickles for fear that they wouldn't be able to harvest them. And it was actually the time that my great-grandfather and grandfather decided that they would, I guess, take a gamble and actually start planting pickles in their own fields. So it was a risk that they took, and it ended up working out. I know there were some hard years and definitely scrambling to get the crop off, but they ended up growing an acreage, and then by the 1970s, we had machine harvest in pickles. This is a kind of a cool picture of the grading operation back in the 1950s, so really rudimentary. And then here you can see, this is still at the site that we are today, but our original wood tanks, I think this picture was taken in the 1980s. At the time, this seemed like a lot of volume. So here's our current process flow. This is actually not, the process flow is still the same as what it was, back in the 1960s, but we go from the field to the grader, where we sort into different sizes and for quality, and then into the tank yard for fermentation, and finally to the manufacturer for final flavors and packaging. So we only work on those first 3 boxes there. We currently are not at the end where we do a final product. Just to show you some of our current volumes, so we're growing over 3,000 acres here, half of which are pickling cucumbers. We're also buying from another 10 growers in the state of Michigan, and that brings in, I would say, roughly 4,500 more acres of pickles into our facility, and that meets the needs of what we do for our customers now, which is roughly 60 million pounds of pickling cucumbers annually. So it's, even we say to ourselves, who eats all these pickles, right? Like it's a mind-boggling number. And if you notice, we're doing it with not very many people. So, in large part due to mechanical harvest, but there's some other innovations that have happened along the way, and I'll talk about those later. So I always get asked this question, and I don't want to insult you, pickling's a process. Cucumbers, pickles, people get a little bit confused here. But we are growing pickling cucumbers as opposed to cucumbers. They are technically cucumbers, but they're a certain kind of cucumbers, and it has to do with their skin and then the ability for salt to penetrate the pickles, or the cucumber. And those are what are kind of rough, or like a wart-looking thing on the pickles, as opposed to like a long Dutch cucumber that you might put on your salad. And those you'd have to actually chop up before you ferment it, whereas we're fermenting full, whole pickles. So that's the difference there. If you leave with nothing else, you should remember that the majority of pickles grown in the United States are grown here in Michigan. We have over 30,000 acres of pickling cucumbers here. It's a huge crop for Michigan. And that really dwarfs in comparison to even the second and third other states growing, which is North Carolina and Florida. So we really have a big industry here. We have a lot of processing capacity built up around it as well. All right, so here's some pictures of the grading operation. I really like the picture with the semi-trucks and the hoppers filled with fresh cucumbers from the field. It just shows you some of the volumes that are coming in. And again, these may be coming from the other side of the state or from the north or south, but all of our pickles that we process are coming from Michigan. And then we feed them into the grater, and then you see where the majority of our workforce, numbers-wise, is in the grading operation, which you can see a picture of it here, sorting out good from bad pickles. And there's a market for everything. So if a pickle is crooked and undesirable in that aspect, maybe it doesn't go into a jar, you could chop it up for relish or chop it up to put on a hamburger. So basically, if it's a pickle, we can use it. This is a picture of the tank yard. I think a nice visual. We have over 1,300 of these fiberglass tanks here. That's where we do fermentation. So we are completing the fermentation process. I probably don't have enough time to get into the science of that, but definitely happy to talk about that later. And the full fermentation takes place outside. I do want to address, because everybody's always shocked that this happens outside, not underneath a cover. It's perfectly safe. So E. coli, Salmonella, Listeria cannot exist in the fermented brine that we used. It's just naturally those pathogens cannot survive. It's not that they don't grow, it's that they actually can't even exist. And then sunlight is really a part of the fermentation process, so that prevents the growth of yeast and molds, and it's a part of it. I mean, there's a reason why we've been doing it like this for so long. And it's still the ancient process of fermentation. It really hasn't changed, except for the scale. So now this shows you how we're actually getting these things in the tanks. A lot of conveyors, chutes. We use a cushion brine, which is that salt brine. We always use last year's brine to start this year's fermentation. So for those of you familiar with the science behind that, that's the culture that kind of gets everything started. And then the process happens quite naturally after that. Lactobacillus is the good bacteria that takes over, and fermentation happens thereafter. And one thing we like to say is, it's really easy if you know what you're doing. But it really is simple. It actually is a very simple process. So don't think we're smarter than what we are. And another great question people always ask is, how do you get them out of the tanks? So this is just a visual. We have a special pump, uses centrifugal force to remove the pickles from the tanks at really large capacities. But you can see it's all happening in real time. So we're not double handling things. We're going from the tank directly to the flatbed truck, and then we cover that and send it to the manufacturer for, again, these final packaging or flavors. So where are we sending these? The market that we play in is the fermented market, specifically fermented. So we do not have pickles going into the refrigerated section. That would be like a Claussen pickle or something that it's refrigerated the whole time. Nor are we active in this fresh pack market, which would be pickles going directly from a field to then a jar. And those are often pasteurized or acidified. What we're marketing in the fermented space. So this is going back to that ancient process of fermentation. It's the most common, most traditional type of pickle that you have. And it's what causes that acidic or sharp flavor, and also the olive color of the flesh. So just pay attention. I think you'll know what I'm talking about the next time that you eat pickles, if you don't know right now. McDonald's hamburger, food service hamburgers, those almost always have fermented pickles as opposed to a fresh pack or refrigerated pickle on them. Challenges and opportunities, looking ahead as we see them. I think it's interesting because many of you have businesses in this room, so I just wanted to kind of point out, the things that we see going forward. We do have a complex regulatory environment here, so not that we have adversarial relationships with all of these people, it's just that there's a lot of rules and regulations. As well, you see Canada GAP as a third-party framework for auditing, for food safety audits. Now, we do that voluntarily, but for our customers, it's hard to exist in the space if you're not doing something like that, but it's not actually required by law. I will say some of the departments even have conflicting, recommendations. So the left hand doesn't always know what the right hand is doing. When you look at through a lens of food safety versus, different parameters, you're going to see things differently. So we're dealing with all of that. This is this is a picture of my daughter. Don't worry, she only worked an hour and she wasn't even that good at her job. But, in all seriousness, we have the same issues as everybody else here. So, part of the reason why we've done a lot of mechanization is just it's hard to find employees. One thing that has been absolutely critical for us is employee housing. So in working in a seasonal space, we really need to provide a ready place to live. We allow people to leave their things for the following year if they come back, try to create long-term relationships. We have other housing besides this, but this is our most capacity in one space, and it's located about 5 miles from our plant. But we actually have really high retention for a seasonal company, and we're really, really proud of that. And then this other picture, I love this picture. It's the end of the year after grading, our last day of grading. We usually do kind of a little party. And if you look closely, you'll see my grandpa's somewhere in there. I can see him from here. But you can kind of see there's a, camaraderie, a team effort. And one of, I guess, the advantages of, now having less workers than we did before is, people are people with names, not numbers. There's no one that works for us that I don't personally know. So, we're a small company, and we operate like that. So major investments in technology to deal with, the evolution of labor just being less available is things like these optical sorters. So we have 2 optical sorters. They're using lasers to detect chlorophyll and density levels. So the first one is removing foreign material, and the second one is dealing with quality aspects. I put a picture below of the foreign material that's being removed. So you might be surprised. That's corn debris, stalks. A lot of corn debris comes in the field. And when you machine harvest something, you're getting everything from the field. And so that's inherent to what we're doing. So this piece of technology has saved us because we have almost a 0 tolerance for sending foreign materials, to our customer. I'm looking around the room. I think a lot of people are kind of familiar with this new infrastructure. We're really excited about it. So this is wastewater infrastructure that's going from the city of Coopersville, Continental, and Fairlife all the way to Muskegon's Resource Recovery Center. And yes, yay, this is a long time coming. And we are happy to, kind of tag along on this project. And we're going to get to, have the ability to access this pipeline. It basically goes right past us, being right in the middle of those 2 locations. We've been, hoping for something like this for a while. And, I see a few people in the room that have been, from the legislator side, a big part of it. And I know I saw Mark Eisenbarth here earlier. So, he's been in this since day one. And we really are looking forward to this because for us, wastewater access has actually been preventing us from doing that last step of manufacturing. So now that we have this pipeline coming, we feel like we can get into that the finished space that we haven't been able to do thus far. In summary, that it's a family business, but it's also we think of it as more than that. So we have really high retention of long-term employees. We have families within our families of workforce that are really important to us. So we're proud that we have. I can think off the top of my head of multiple employees that have more than 20 to 25 years experience with us, including seasonal employees that are coming back. So we're really happy for the environment that we've created. And I'm in the 4th generation with my brothers now. And then this is my last slide, the 5th generation. These are my brother's kids. The picture's a little outdated now. I don't know if they'd be holding hands anymore because they're in the teenage years. But I think it's cool because that's one of our pickle fields, and it just looks like such a happy picture to look forward. So I would have time for questions now if anybody has any.
How long does fermentation take, and how many months out of the year are you able to do the fermentation process?
Okay, great question. So the actual process takes about 2 weeks to complete naturally. We're only doing it during our harvest season, July to end of September. When we get into October, not only agronomically is it more risky to be still trying to harvest cucumbers in Michigan at that time, but from the temperature perspective, we would have a hard time fermenting as the temperatures are getting colder. So yeah, the process can stretch out a little bit longer than that, but 2 weeks you'd be safe to eat it. One note is you wouldn't have uniform texture. If you cut the pickle open, you'd have like some olive, some white. And so we like to wait 8 weeks, but 2 weeks would be safe. Yeah.
A quick question and a couple almost as quick comments.
Very quick comment.
I might have missed this, but is not Swanson Pickle like the second or third largest pickle grower in the country?
Yeah, so, because Michigan is the most predominant state for pickling cucumbers, I guess many of us are here. I'd say we probably have, the first or second largest tank yard, in the country, in the world. I mean, there's you don't find these in Europe either. So, but yeah, that's true. We don't often, talk about that, but you have to the reality is you need economies of scale to do what we're doing. Everything we're set up to do is, fast, efficient. So if you're going to have a tank yard, it's going to be large, and there's not that many of them.
I'm not a pickle guy, but that's really impressive.
Thank you.
You guys are out in Ravenna, which is kind of on the
Yeah.
periphery of Metro Muskegon, but Swanson family contributions have been huge. John,
thank you.
Activity with the chamber and the community foundation, wonderful. And lastly, I'm really impressed with your return to the area. We've been not blessed with an out-migration of the youthful generation for ages. Now we're starting to see them come back, which is phenomenal. So happy to see you be a boomerang person. I see you active in the different events and whatnot. Family business is the root of our economic stability, so carry on.
Thank you. I didn't even pay him for that. I really appreciate that.
I'm curious, Katie, I come from the Traverse City area, so I'm really familiar with the cherry business, which is extremely vulnerable to extreme weather. And I just wonder, how does that compare with the pickle industry?
Yeah, pickles are definitely sensitive to weather, much more so than your grains like corn or beans, can tolerate quite a lot. So one of the reasons why we're sourcing from all of Michigan is to manage our agronomic risk. So you can have, we have a lot of microclimates here. A lot of people don't realize that. So you could have a hail event in one area or even a drought in one area and not another. So by sourcing from the entire state, we are our own insurance, so to speak. And we're hoping, and most years it works out like this, if the east side's having a bumper crop, the west side might be really poor and vice versa. So we're kind of in it for the long haul for the averages. Mm-hmm.
Katie, the technology that you had mentioned, where is it coming from? What kind of, there's not that many pickling plants around. Where do you get it, and where is that technology taking you, say, 5-10 years from now?
Yeah, so we see Europe is bringing us a lot of the vegetable technology. Our grater came from the Netherlands originally, and then those vision sorters come from Belgium. But what we're doing here, though, is applying it differently. So I think we're taking the innovation and then kind of making it our own. And our grater that we bought originally from the Netherlands in the year 2000 is not even close to the same grater. We've fabbed tons of stuff to make it, our own. But yeah, the source of that innovation is Europe right now.
Katie, I've got a couple of environmental impact questions.
Okay.
When in growing pickles, what kind of fertilizer is used? Having recently seen the documentary about Lake Erie and the impact of agriculture on Lake Erie, and and it impacts our lakes around here. And then the other one is about pesticides. You mentioned a couple of pathogens that you have to deal with, you know, what kind of pesticides are used and how does, you know, you keep that from, you know, going up the food chain.
Yeah, so I'll answer in reverse order. The pathogens I mentioned were actually food safety vegetative pathogens. So I was referring to the food safety aspect, like things that would, you know, end up growing that undesirable. We do deal with in the field downy mildew, which would be the pathogen that you're referring to. That, you know, we do when we need to. We do need to use, you know, the tools in our toolbox, pesticides being one of them. I would say pickles themselves, and I did work in agriculture in Florida, tomatoes, tomatoes and peppers. Pickles are not a heavy user of pesticides naturally. You know, part of it is our climate, killing off a lot of things here in Michigan. It's not as intense of a crop to manage as some of the other fruits and vegetables. But, you know, we're following all the you know, Department of Agriculture guidelines and trying to be good stewards. I think we have as much to lose as anybody. You know, I mean, we not only, we live, work, you know, raising our families in the same environment. So I think our goals are probably the same, but we do think that, you know, to be practical, I think you do need, you know, pesticides are part of it. I have lots of opinions that we could talk about later, but, you know, I don't think you can, I don't think that you cannot use any tools. And maybe genetics is another way to look at it, you know, breeding for more resistance to downy mildew, which we have seen the seed companies start to do. The other question you had was on the fertilizer. So you know, we do use some 28%. We also use, that would be a nitrogen. We also use manure. You know, we work closely with the dairy operations in our area, and we trade land, and we have very cooperative relationship with all our farming neighbors to, you know, get manure naturally that way as well. And again, just going back to good management practices, doing the best we can to manage things with the same goals that I think we all have, you know.
Thank you. That was an interesting talk. My question is referring back to that slide where it was the fermentation type of pickle and then a different type.
Yes.
Was that non-ferment? Like what was going on with those pickles?
Oh, I was gonna go.
And then my other question is,
Maybe
are there
we'll get
health
this
benefit differences?
That's a really interesting question. So, you know, I'm a little bit biased, I'll say, because we're making but you know, fermentation is creating, again, going back to the process. So this lactobacillus is the good bacteria that takes over, and there is known, you know, health benefits to that. Whether or not they're retained in every single product, I don't know, ask the lawyers, like, but, you know, we know, or I know, I do small things fermented on the kitchen counter because I do believe in the benefits of fermentation. I think they've been well established. The refrigerated and fresh pack would have probably less of those like healthy microorganisms just because you're, you know, you haven't let the process go on as far. And that's why they're, you know, either doing the pasteurization or refrigerating just to stop it from happening. Because really the refrigeration is halting the process, you know. That's one of the reasons why, to your question, we can't do fermentation past the end of September because it's just too cold for anything to really happen.
Thank you. Great presentation, Katie.
Thank you.
You talked about a couple of your challenges. One was environmental, and those things are coming along. You talked about hourly staff, migrant workers. A lot of people are working on that. You're replacing hourly workers with technology. So how are you addressing skilled trades? Because the profile of your staff, as you become more technology dependent, is changing. So how are you recruiting and keeping those kinds of folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question and a great point. We have, thus far, we'd prefer to work with the staff we have and train people, you know, up to the role. So if somebody doesn't have, you know, right now the knowledge to run a vision sorter, then, you know, we'd like to get those people there. So we want to, you know, create and retain who we already have showing up, you know, for work, starting there. We haven't done a lot very, very little with recruiting. More, well, we recruit by people recruiting other people, you know, okay, I'll bring my cousin, my wife, you know, and that's true for our full-time and our seasonal workforce. We have a lot of families that work for us.
Thank you. So what kind of education do your full-time workers need versus your seasonal workers?
So, we're open to anything. You know, we'll work with. We're not very regimented in thinking that somebody needs a certain degree to do a certain job. We're by nature just not fixated on that. So I don't think we have a requirement. No, I know we don't have a requirement for any position to have something specific. I mean, the most basic requirement is, you know, work ethic and ability to learn. So I think college can help you with a lot of things. I mean, you know, my brother went to the ag tech program for agronomics. I mean, that obviously helps him a lot in managing the farm. We have various other degrees in the company, but yeah, we're starting more at the square one of, you know, show up and we'll figure out the rest. Whether we need to send them to additional training or school, we would do that. Thank you.
I saw my first pickle farm, which was probably your pickle farm, when I was 8 years old, and it just blew me away. Not only how many vats of pickles could be in one place, but the aroma was just amazing. And I say that non-judgmentally. Thank you, Katie. In your honor, we will be making a contribution to the Malala Fund to continue the opportunities for girls to get education in places where it is very difficult. So thank you very much. Today we have birthdays again. Surprisingly, everybody seems to be getting a year older. I don't know how that happens. Jennifer Hammond has a birthday on March 30th, Kathy Blackburn on March 31st, Brandon Turnborn on April 1st, you know, the Fool's Day, Marty Garanser on April 2nd, Tom Palmer, April 3rd, Lisa Tyler, April 5th, and that brings us up to date. So if any of those people are here and want to give their birthday present to the Caring Connection, Kim will take them while we sing you a song. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. As we will be reminded in a little bit, being part of Rotary is also being part of the community, and all of our members have a rich, rich life outside of our Rotary meetings. And so we're going to find out a little bit about one more, and that would be Marla Schneider.
My name is Marla Schneider. I'm President CEO of Greater Muskegon Economic Development. And I joined Rotary because I was new to the community and I felt that it was important to get to know and network with members of the community that have a good amount of knowledge as to what's happening here. So I'm originally from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I went to school in Rochester, New York. I have a degree in IT and have never yet worked in IT, but I've have more of a background professionally in marketing, and I have a 17-year-old son who has decided to finish out high school in Fort Wayne, which I completely understand. And so I get to visit him quite often. Hobbies, I like to ride my bicycle, I kayak, I like to get out in nature and hike and just go on different adventures. As President CEO of GMED, I helped to set the strategy for the organization with our board. And I'm out meeting with members of the community and stakeholders and businesses quite often. My day is usually full with meetings, and so just networking and communicating and convening with the community is the most important thing of my position. And but also what GMED does is connect businesses who are looking to expand with government incentives or workforce training incentives, and that helps build the tax base of Muskegon County. I've been meeting with Judy, and we've talked about the potential of me spearheading the PR marketing committee for Rotary Club and kind of bringing my strategic planning expertise and marketing expertise to that committee. And I feel like that's a really good fit with my professional background and my interests.
So it won't be very long. Some of you will be getting a call from Marla saying it's time. Pardon me? They already have. See how efficient we are? Okay, so now we have a wonderful part of the program when we invite new people to join us. And so we have 2 inductions today. And so we'll, Lisa and is it you, Jim, will come forward with their candidates for membership.
Hi, I'm introducing Kathy Blackburn today. Kathy Blackburn has lived in West Michigan her whole life. She was born in Holland, grew up in Hudsonville, graduated from Hudsonville High School, and attended Hope College. She graduated with a BA in Communications, Education, and English, and she has lived in Holland since that time. She also completed the Institutes of Organization Management through Notre Dame. Excuse me. Kathy is passionate about making a positive difference in the lives of others, and that is evident throughout her career. Her first job was in Ottawa Area Intermediate School District. She was there for 7 years in marketing communications for the Career Tech Center, Ottawa Area Center, and the local school districts. She then worked at Holland Chamber of Commerce as their communications director for 9 years, and after that, she was in the public relations director for Freedom Village Retirement Community for 10 years. Her career path changed a bit after that, and she took a position as senior philanthropy advisor for Hope College for 7 years, and almost exactly 1 year ago, she moved to Grand Valley State University as a major gift officer for the University Development Office. In addition, for the past 17 years, Kathy has served as president for the senior marketing group, the Lakeshore area. It is an all-volunteer group designed to bring together senior-serving businesses to benefit the senior citizens in West Michigan. Previous board positions have been Community Action House in Holland and with the Children's After-School Achievement Program through Hope College. Kathy is a graduate of the Leadership Holland and has completed the Institutes for Healing Racism program, both of which were incredibly impactful to her. Kathy is married to Tim Blackburn, who works for AgeWell. They have 3 children, Abby, 27, Noah, 25, and Sophie, 21. She is grateful that she lives in West Michigan, or that they all live in West Michigan. During the summer, they have a seasonal campsite in Bear Lake where they spend a lot of their time. In her role with Grand Valley University, Kathy covers the Lakeshore from Muskegon to Holland, and she is excited to get to know the Muskegon community better through Rotary.
Good afternoon. So Katie, what a great presentation. And not only that, but thanks for setting the theme for today, because Amy Hosford, who I'm going to introduce, is also returning to Muskegon. And Eric, what a great comment about family businesses and the importance of all of us encouraging people to come back to the area. So Amy grew up here. Amy went to Reese Puffer schools. Marty's introduced the Rockets many times, and Amy's a Rocket. After she graduated from Reese Puffer, she went to the Kalamazoo Center for the Healing Arts, studying massage therapy and holistic health, which is a thread that we'll come back to in a little bit. After that, she did some work in that field, ended up in Grand Haven with some companies, including a company called Brilliance Audio, which was a publishing company, which was eventually acquired by Amazon. And Amy spent 22 years in the whole field of publishing between Brilliance Audio and Amazon. So Amy's a great writer and a great storyteller, so I would be remiss if I didn't share some of what she gave me today. Amy could tell you all about the different roles she played and the incredibly talented authors she worked alongside and published over the years, and the cool tech projects she helped launch. But what she would really like you to know about is her biggest lesson learned. When you prioritize people over projects and profits, you can never get it wrong. Amy retired from Amazon in 2022, and after taking some much needed time off to travel and begin deprogramming herself from one of the largest corporations in the world, she recently launched Hosford House LLC. It's an intentionally small healing and literary arts business that combines her personal passions of guided breathwork and self-inquiry alongside her professional publishing experience and expertise. As Amy will often say, breathing and storytelling is essential to a well-lived life. So if you're still reading this, you may be thinking that all she does is work. And yes, that was mostly true, but as she approaches her 50th year of life, some of us remember that, she's writing a new chapter that puts her biggest lesson learned front and center: people over projects and profits. She spends as much time as she can with her husband, Alan, of over 23 years, her dog, Piper, and her closest friends and family. And now that she controls her own schedule, she's scheduling plenty of time for service, both locally and globally. It includes her work as a board member and audience committee chair for the West Michigan Symphony, where she became not only neighbors with, but good friends with Susan Crane, who started her process with Rotary. Susan, of course, is in Florida. She was on Zoom for a while today, but thanks to Susan for introducing her. Amy's thrilled and quite honored to be adding the Muskegon Rotary community to her areas of focus, and I'm tickled that you're joining Rotary. Amy Hosford.
I'm going to give these to the sponsors. And fellow Rotarians and our candidates, you have been chosen for membership of the Rotary Club of Muskegon because of your standing and your vocation and in the community, and because your personal qualities, which we believe to make you a good Rotarian. By joining the Rotary Club of Muskegon, you become part of a worldwide organization of business and professional leaders united in the fellowship to provide humanitarian service, to encourage high ethical standards in all vocations, and to create goodwill and achieve peace throughout the world. We accept you as a member because we believe you adopt these high principles of Rotary as your own, and that you will do everything that you can to fulfill your membership obligations as these become known to you. There are, of course, many privileges of membership, and I think you will quickly find that one of the most important of these will be your regular enjoyment of the friendship of like-minded individuals in an egalitarian atmosphere, not only in this club, but anywhere in the Rotarians gather. Your proposer will now present you with a Rotary lapel pin, which should be worn at all times, and we will check. Yeah, yeah. This will identify you as a Rotarian and will assure you of a warm welcome in the 36,913 Rotary clubs in over 200 countries. Also, your name badge, which will identify you and have your classification. This is as important as it signifies the vocation which you represent and in which you are an ambassador to Rotary. Rotarians, would you now rise as I present the two newest members of Rotary, Amy and Kathy? I knew that. I knew that. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Okay, now we have, oh yeah, here's my page. Announcements. Meredith, do you have an announcement for us today? Okay. Then we're going to congratulate Pam Babbitt because she won the silent auction last week and got the chair that our Doug Brown so generously offered to raise money for our Interact clubs. So congratulations to Pam. And we are going to the raffle, but before we go to that raffle, I want to read a communication from the district Rotary treasurer, Robert Marcus, and I preface this to say that there's a certain irony in this, but not necessarily chicanery. We, in our club, are one of the winners of the Rotary Club. A member of your Rotary Club won 6th place in the Rotary Foundation raffle. And I have included a check payable to Rem Sprague. So Rem, we don't suspect anything of this. I think Meredith sold you the tickets, so you tell Ginny that she's clear and that part of that, if not all of that, is going into some treat for Ginny as she recovers. Yes, and we will check on that too. Yeah. Okay. And now we can go on to our raffle. Not quite as rich as that raffle, but nevertheless. And you don't have any checks, okay.
That's for $20. 908.
Oh, yay! Oh.
Let's get over there again. 902? Did you win?
Over here, Bill.
How many people are holding the
Sometimes that works. He gets easily confused. Next week, we will be hosting the Kathy Evans. Is she going to be the speaker for Restoring Muskegon Lake? something that we have been living with for I don't know how many years, and it has come to a fruition. So that would be a wonderful program for us to celebrate. And now we would all rise and say the four-way test. Is it the truth? Fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned?